Chapter 8. Your Ladyship. Early the next morning, directly after 12, Miss Pole made her appearance at Miss Matty's. Some very trifling piece of business was alleged as a reason for the call, but there was evidently something behind. At last out it came. By the way, you'll think I'm strangely ignorant, but do you really know, I am puzzled how we ought to address Lady Glenmire. Do you say your ladyship, where you would say you to a common person? I have been puzzling all morning, and are we to say my lady instead of ma'am? Now, you knew Lady Arley. Will you kindly tell me the most correct way of speaking to the peerage? Poor Miss Matty. She took off her spectacles and she put them on again, but how Lady Arley was addressed, she could not remember. It is so long ago, she said. Dear, dear, how stupid I am. I don't think I ever saw her more than twice. I know we used to call Sir Peter, but he came much oftener to see us than Lady Arley did. Deborah would have known in a minute. My lady, your ladyship, it sounds very strange, and as if it was not natural. I never thought of it before, but now you have named it, I am all in a puzzle. It was very certain Miss Pole would obtain no wise decision from Miss Matty, who got more bewildered every moment and more perplexed as to etiquettes of address. Well, I really think, said Miss Pole, I had better just go and tell Mrs. Forrester about our little difficulty. One sometimes grows nervous, and yet one would not have Lady Glenmire think we were quite ignorant of the etiquettes of high life in Cranford. And will you just step in here, dear Miss Pole, as you come back, please, and tell me what you decide upon. Whatever you and Mrs. Forrester fix upon will be quite right, I'm sure. Lady Arley, Sir Peter, said Miss Matty to herself, trying to recall the old forms of words. Who is Lady Glenmire? Asked I. Oh, she's the widow of Mr. Jameson. That's Mrs. Jameson's late husband, you know, widow of his eldest brother. Mrs. Jameson was a Miss Walker, daughter of Governor Walker. Your ladyship, my dear, if they fix on that way of speaking, you must just let me practice a little on you first, for I shall feel so foolish and hot saying it the first time to Lady Glenmire. It was really a relief to Miss Matty when Mrs. Jameson came on a very unpolite errand. I notice that apathetic people have more quiet impertinence than others, and Mrs. Jameson came now to insinuate pretty plainly that she did not particularly wish that the Cranford ladies should call upon her. I can hardly say how she made this clear, for I grew very indignant and warm, while with slow deliberation she was explaining her wishes to Miss Matty, who, a true lady herself, could hardly understand the feeling which made Mrs. Jameson wish to appear to her noble sister-in-law as if she only visited county families. Miss Matty remained puzzled and perplexed long after I had found out the object of Mrs. Jameson's visit. When she did understand the drift of the honorable lady's call, it was pretty to see with what quiet dignity she received the intimation thus uncourteously given. She was not in the least hurt. She was of too gentle a spirit for that. Nor was she exactly conscious of disapproving of Mrs. Jameson's conduct, but there was something of this feeling in her mind, I am sure, which made her pass from the subject to others in a less flurried and more composed manner than usual. Mrs. Jameson was, indeed, the more flurried of the two, and I could see she was glad to take her leave. A little while afterwards Miss Pole returned, red and indignant. Well, to be sure, you've had Mrs. Jameson here, I find from Martha, and we are not to call on Lady Glenmire. Yes, I met Mrs. Jameson halfway between here and Mrs. Forrester's, and she told me. She took me so by surprise, I had nothing to say. I wish I had thought of something very sharp and sarcastic. I dare say I shall tonight. And Lady Glenmire is but the widow of a Scotch baron after all. I went on to look at Mrs. Forrester's peerage to see who this lady was, that is to be kept under a glass case. Widow of a Scotch peer, never sat in the House of Lords, and as poor as Job, I dare say. And she, fifth daughter of some Miss Campbell or other. You are the daughter of a rector, at any rate, and related to the Arleys. And Sir Peter might have been Viscount Arley, everyone says. Miss Matty tried to soothe Miss Pole, but in vain. That lady, usually so kind and good-humored, was now in a full flow of anger. "And I went and ordered a cab this morning to be quite ready," said she, at last letting out the secret which gave sting to Mrs. Jameson's intimation. "Mrs. Jameson shall see if it is so easy to get me to make forth at a pool when she has none of her fine Scotch relations with her." In coming out of church, the first Sunday on which Lady Glenmire appeared in Cranford, we sedulously talked together and turned our backs on Mrs. Jameson and her guest. If we might not call on her, we would not even look at her, though we were dying with curiosity to know what she was like. We had the comfort of questioning Martha in the afternoon. Martha did not belong to a sphere of society whose observation could be an implied compliment to Lady Glenmire, and Martha had made good use of her eyes. "Well, ma'am, is it the little lady with Mrs. Jameson, you mean? I thought you would like more to know how young Mrs. Smith was dressed, her being a bride." Mrs. Pole said, "Good gracious me," as if we cared about a Mrs. Smith, but was silent as Martha resumed her speech. "The little lady in Mrs. Jameson's pew had on, ma'am, rather an old black silk, and a shepherd's plaid cloak, ma'am, and very bright black eyes she had, ma'am, and a pleasant sharp face. Not over young, ma'am, but yet, I should guess, younger than Mrs. Jameson herself. She looked up and down the church like a bird, and nipped up her petticoats when she came out as quick and sharp as ever I see. I'll tell you what, ma'am, she's more like Mrs. Deacon at the Coach and Horses, nor anyone." "Hush, Martha," said Miss Matty. "That's not respectful." "Isn't it, ma'am? I beg pardon, I'm sure. But Jem Hearn said so as well. He said she was just such a sharp, stirring sort of a body." "Lady," said Miss Pole. "Lady, as Mrs. Deacon." Another Sunday passed away, and we still averted our eyes from Mrs. Jameson and her guest, and made remarks to ourselves that we thought were very severe, almost too much so. Miss Matty was evidently uneasy at our sarcastic manner of speaking. Perhaps by this time Lady Glenmire had found out that Mrs. Jameson was not the gayest, liveliest house in the world. Perhaps Mrs. Jameson had found out that most of the county families were in London, and that those who remained in the country were not so alive as they might have been to the circumstance of Lady Glenmire being in their neighbourhood. Great events spring out of small causes. So, I will not pretend to say what induced Mrs. Jameson to alter her determination of excluding the Cranford ladies and send notes of invitation all around for a small party on the following Tuesday. Mr. Mulliner himself brought them around. He would always ignore the fact of there being a back door to any house, and gave a louder rat-tat than his mistress, Mrs. Jameson. He had 3 little notes, which he carried in a large basket, in order to impress his mistress with an idea of their great weight, though they might easily have gone into his waistcoat pocket. Miss Matty and I quietly decided that we would have a previous engagement at home. It was the evening on which Miss Matty usually made candle-lighters of all the notes and letters of the week. For on Mondays, her accounts were always made straight, not a penny owing from the week before. So, by a natural arrangement, making candle-lighters fell upon a Tuesday evening and gave us a legitimate excuse for declining Mrs. Jameson's invitation. But before our answer was written, in came Miss Pole with an open note in her hand. "So," she said, "ah, I see you have got your note too. Better late than never. I could have told my Lady Glenmire she would be glad enough of our society before a fortnight was over." "Yes," said Miss Matty, "we're asked for Tuesday evening, and perhaps you would just kindly bring your work across and drink tea with us that night. It is my usual regular time for looking over the last week's bills and notes and letters, and making candle-lighters of them. But that does not seem quite reason enough for saying I have a previous engagement at home, though I meant to make it do. Now, if you would come, my conscience would be quite at ease, and luckily the note is not written yet." I saw Miss Pole's countenance change while Miss Matty was speaking. "Don't you mean to go, then?" asked she. "Oh, no," said Miss Matty quietly. "You don't either, I suppose?" "I don't know," replied Miss Pole. "Yes, I think I do," said she, rather briskly, and on seeing Miss Matty look surprised, she added, "You see, one would not like Mrs. Jameson to think that anything she could do or say was of consequence enough to give offense. It would be a kind of letting down of ourselves that I, for one, should not like. It would be too flattering to Mrs. Jameson if we allowed her to suppose that what she had said affected us a week, nay, 10 days afterwards. Well, I suppose it is wrong to be hurt and annoyed so long about anything, and perhaps, after all, she did not mean to vex us. But I must say, I could not have brought myself to say the things Mrs. Jameson did about our not calling. I really don't think I shall go. Oh, come, Miss Matty, you must go. You know our friend Mrs. Jameson is much more phlegmatic than most people, and does not enter into the little delicacies of feeling which you possess in so remarkable a degree. I thought you possessed them too that day Mrs. Jameson called to tell us not to go, said Miss Matty innocently. But Miss Pole, in addition to her delicacies of feeling, possessed a very smart cap, which she was anxious to show to an admiring world. And so she seemed to forget all her angry words uttered not a fortnight before, and to be ready to act on what she called the great Christian principle of